Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the house tonight. I'm so glad you decided to join us on this chilly November evening. And thank you for being here because honestly, it is no small miracle that we have made it all through the pandemic thus far, and we are still here celebrating our 37th year. So thank you for being a part of that. I want to thank our sponsors tonight, who you may have read on the front of the program, Paul and Ann Glendon, who are here tonight. So thank you to Paul and Ann for supporting tonight's program. And thank you also to the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, who support Kerrytown Concert House through grant funding, as well as the Don Chisholm Friends of Jazz here at Kerrytown Concert House, who don't just support jazz, they support all of our programming here in a very unique way. They have a special group that makes just absolutely amazing contributions to support our programming here at the house. I'd also like to remind you that if you are looking at doing your year-end giving sometime soon, as we all know the year is rolling to an end, please do consider Kerrytown Concert House in your giving. Giving Tuesdays also popping up soon. It's Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and we will be accepting donations as a part of that. Please do consider us in your giving. We also do have gift cards available. So take a look at our website. We'll have a button there for gift cards. Give the gift of music this holiday season if you'd like to. I also do want to say hello to everyone on the live stream. For those watching, we are streaming all of our programming live during the actual showtime right now. So if you're ever away on holiday, if you are in Florida for the winter, or you just can't be with us for whatever reason, please do tune in online during showtime. And for those of you who are watching right now, please consider a donation in place of a ticket purchase. The website for that is kerrytownconcerthouse.com/donate. All right, now, without too much further ado, I would like to welcome back to the house the Ara Topouzian trio. We are so pleased to have Ara back. He is a pillar of the Armenian cultural community here in Michigan, and he was here a couple years ago, and we are so pleased that he could be part of this season back inside the house after a long-awaited time of being outside and online only. So we are so pleased to bring him back with Mark and Jerry as a part of his trio tonight for an evening of traditional Armenian music.
Elijah, can you mute things for a minute? Test. Sorry about the click. Test. Oh, it did.
Thank you. Well, we want to welcome all of you here, and it's really special for us to be here today. It's special to be able to do anything live today, right? And yeah, that's a nice round of applause. And I see some people that I haven't seen in a very, very long time, so that's extra special too. So first, let's get this out of the way. I don't think I'm the pillar of the Armenian community, but thank you for that. Hopefully the check will clear, but yeah. So as you heard, my name is Ara Topouzian, and it's always a privilege to do these kinds of concerts. We really enjoy playing music. This is a passion for us to play it. It's not a livelihood for the three of us, and so to be able to do this and give you really kind of a taste and a sample of Armenian Middle Eastern music is really important. So we're going to play and we're going to talk, and Mark and I are going to probably go back and forth and make fun of each other during the course of the evening, because that's kind of what we do. But first off, I would like to introduce, oh yeah, that's nice. He's getting all warmed up. So on my left is Mr. Mark Gavoor on oud. How about a nice hand for Mark? So Mark and I go way back to the point where, we are old family friends. Our parents were very good friends. Our fathers were very good friends. Oh, God, already that bugs me. Sorry. Why don't you talk?
He babysat my kids.
Twice.
Because of
No,
me playing music and driving him home, I think we planted the seed for him becoming a musician.
So the story, as the story goes, was one of the times I babysat, and we lived walking distance from each other, Mark and his wife and family. And it would take a half hour to get home. He would drive me home. 5-minute drive turned into a half-hour drive.
Slight exaggeration.
It's not slightly exaggerated. And, he'd have the three of us share a passion of also enjoying cigars. And so he had maybe about this nub of a cigar that was left, and I think he was trying to get through it. And I don't know, you're maybe 12 years older, 13 years older than me, and I didn't, I was a kid. I'm in the car, creepy guy is smoking a cigar, taking his time going home. This was like the, I don't know, this was the mid-'80s or something like that. But what Mark would do was he was playing a lot of this music in the car. And I didn't know it. And like he said, it really, I kind of caught the bug a little bit from listening to that. So I babysat a lot for Mark and Judy, and for the kids, obviously, and so this was a lot of that. So it's kind of ironic that we fast forward here that we play music together, and it's always fun to play with Mark, and we have such a really good time. And then there's Jerry. So their next song, no. So Jerry Gerjekian on the dumbegs. How about a nice hand for Jerry? So Jerry was born a son of a sharecropper. No, Jerry. So Jerry has been playing for a number of years, and he is playing what is, I failed to mention that the oud, for those of you that don't know, is a Middle Eastern lute. It's really the grandfather of the guitar. It's 11 strings. Mark will talk a little bit about it later. Jerry, obviously our percussionist, is playing really a unique setup. There's not too many drummers that play like this or play well like he does. He's a phenomenal, yeah. And he's a good friend. And so he's playing kind of a dual set of dumbegs, one that's got a little bit of a trebly sound to it and one that's got a bit of a bass sound to it, which really complements certainly what we're going to be able to do. And Jerry's been playing for just probably as long as Mark. These two are, like I said, quite a bit older than me. And they played dances, they played nightclubs and all of this kind of good stuff. So again, this is the kind of banter and stories that you're going to hear from us tonight. That last song that we did was very popular, sort of a 9/8 rhythm in Middle Eastern music. We're going to play another song in that same rhythm a little bit later, but it's one that we like, and certainly we hope that you're going to enjoy the music tonight. So again, thank you for coming out. Thank you to Kerrytown for having us and for doing live music like this. It's not easy for them to do it. And those of you that are watching from home, thank you for watching and supporting. So the next song that we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about what that song was, I think first, but then the next song that we're going to do is an Armenian 10/8 song, Enzeli, which Mark's going to talk about. But Mark, can you talk a little bit about the song that we just played?
This song that we just played, Uskudara, is, most people think it's a Turkish song, but it belongs to all cultures. And there's a YouTube that you can watch, that there's so many cultures that have words to that song in it, from all the way from the Slavic nations through all of the Arab countries. And so Armenians have adopted it as well, because lots of Armenians have lived or used to live in Istanbul and knew the song and played it very well. So we grew up listening to it. Eartha Kitt recorded it, maybe it was in the 50s, and it's kind of an interesting recording. You can find that on YouTube as well.
You know, and what's really unique about kind of the music that we play here on stage, I mean, obviously the three of us are Armenian, and we learned not only Armenian music, but certainly the whole kind of an array of Middle Eastern music, which is kind of unique when you think about it. So if you've ever watched, let's say, Arabic musicians, and when they play, they usually are pretty strict to just playing Arabic music. It's not that they're playing a bunch of other kind of genres. And I find that Armenians are kind of unique in that we're able to play Armenian, Greek, Israeli, Persian, Turkish, you name it. We play the whole line of it. A lot of that happened, I think, basically in this country. A lot of it is because Armenian performers would sit on stage with other performers of other ethnicities, and so we learned really sort of a cascade of music over the years. So it's not unique for us to play a song something like Iskudara. But the next song that we're going to play is very Armenian, Enzeli. Do you want to talk a little bit about that as much? No. Okay. No. So the song Enzeli is an Armenian folk tune that I actually particularly enjoy. It's in a rhythm called of a 10/8 rhythm, and Armenians, especially in this country, are very accustomed and acute to dance a lot of a 10/8 rhythm. It's something musicians really enjoy. There's, I think, a lot of Kurdish music that's written in a 10/8 rhythm, and this is something that I recorded this a long time ago. See, Mark's memory just came back, yep. So I helped him out a little bit with that. This is the banter I'm discussing. Mark, can you tell us a little bit more?
Well, not about Enzeli, but the 10/8 rhythm is something that the Iraqi and Iraqi Assyrians called Georgina, or Georgina sometimes. And so I play in the Middle Eastern Music Ensemble at the University of Chicago, and we were playing a Georgina one time. And so during the background, I started playing a song that I thought was very Armenian, and the Iraqi guy came and sat next to me and started singing it in Arabic. So, the music is, no matter how the cultures may clash, music is a crossover between all of them. So, Enzeli. Yarmunei chinar boyo deskovan naman Sirunnerun takuiner sirovan sahman Yarmunei chinar boyo deskovan naman Sirunnerun takuiner sirovan sahman Ah im anusharız inçu heratsar İnçu heratsar inçu moratsar Ah im anusharız inçu heratsar İnçu heratsar inçu moratsar Սևաչկերը խոլոր խոշոր սևսաթի նման Քիշեք ծորեք ես երկում եմ բուլբուլի նման Սևաչկերը խոլոր խոշոր սևսաթի նման Քիշեք ծորեք ես երկում եմ բուլբուլի նման Ախ իմ անուշարս ինչու հերացար Ինչու հերացար, ինչու մոռացար Ախ իմ անուշարս ինչու հերացար Ինչու հերացար, ինչու մոռացար Yarmunei chinar boyo deskovan naman Sirunnerun takuiner sirovan sahman Yarmunei chinar boyo deskovan naman Sirunnerun takuiner sirovan sahman Ahim anusharız inçu heratsar İnçu heratsar, inçu moratsar Ahim anusharız inçu heratsar İnçu heratsar, inçu moratsar Ahim anusharız inçu heratsar İnçu heratsar, inçu moratsar
Thank you. So, kind of a little bit about kind of this music and you know how it really kind of came to be. So, I always enjoy these kinds of audiences because there's usually a good number of you that probably have never heard of any of this music. So, if you haven't heard of this music, raise your hand so I know who I can lie to. Mark. I was like, oh, okay, great, 4 of you, perfect. The rest of you know what we're doing up here then. That's wonderful. It's good to know. But it's important to really share a little bit about kind of how this music survived, because I think that that's awfully important. For those of you that don't know, the Armenians have gone through horrible times. We still continue to be going through some very rough times. But of note, pertaining to this music, was a little over 100 years ago, back in 1915, 1.5 million Armenians were massacred by order of the Turkish government, which was the Ottoman Empire at the time. And you know, we're all here. Every Armenian that is sitting here today or that's watching is here because of a genocide. No question about it. It's touched every one of our families one way or another. And that's important to let that kind of sink in a little bit. When you talk about the music that we play, there is no sheet music for this music. None whatsoever, okay? Maybe now some people have transposed it, but But when this music was written, a lot of these are very simplistic village tunes, all of which had lyrics at one point. Mark is singing some of them, but everything that we're playing that's Armenian certainly had lyrics to it. But they got lost. They got lost because of a genocide. But here's what's amazing about that. Look what actually survived, and look how it survived, okay? If you were to have folk music now, how it would survive would be on recordings and, and digital and whatnot. Well, 1915, there was no Spotify, there was no Apple Music, there was nothing. And so thinking about how the refugees still kept this music in their hearts, in their minds, in their souls, and brought that to not only this country, to other countries, but let's talk about here. We're in the United States, and certainly the music that came and survived here, and not on records. I mean, they had to bring this. The masters of this music that played this music. We learned from recordings. We learned from watching and playing with a lot of these musicians, but the first generation that was here, they just remembered it, and then how they taught it was orally. It was you would sit next to a musician like this, and you would hum the song, and the other musician would have to kind of remember that and go home and practice it, and and that's how it survived. So think about that for a minute. That this music not only was created maybe thousands of years ago, right? It survived in this country, okay, well over 100 years after a genocide. We lost music. We certainly lost music. But there's a lot that still is still with us. So, I mean, in our small part, that's why I joke, we're not pillars of the community, but we do have, I think, a job as musicians to perform and preserve this kind of music for the next generation of Armenians and those that are really interested about that. Yeah? So. Don't feel compelled to clap every time I speak. It's not all that wonderful. I mean, right? Yeah. Oh,
That was a pretty good speech.
That was pretty good.
That was a good speech.
Yeah.
That's worth an applause.
Yeah, I know. And then we'll talk a little bit how we kind of learned some of this music and what we kind of like to and go from there. So the next song we'd like to do. So we're playing a little bit of this by ear a little bit, because that really is the nature of kind of a lot of this music. We know kind of the songs that we want to play for you, and we're kind of jumping around. But do you want feel like doing Hella Hella?
Oh, sure.
Which is, do you want to talk a little bit about that? So not everyone just hears me all night long?
Well, I don't know. It's your trio.
Yeah, well, you're part of it. Funny
This
man he
song
is.
Well, you might say it's from Dikranagert, which is modern Diyarbakir in Turkey, and there's no Armenians living there. But so part of it is in the Dikranagert, what they call Kerketsi dialect. I'll sing a few verses that way, but I'll also sing verses that the rest of the Armenian community knows. But this song was something that people could play without musicians. They could just clap and play it. And then everybody else would sing Hella Hella Hella Ninoye Ageg Nerun Hartsume Hella Hella Hella Ninoye. And there's like 5,000 verses to this, because they might sing a verse about Ara or Jerry or somebody else in the audience, and they would all laugh because it would be a humorous verse or something like that. And
Is this your cheap way of trying to get them to clap while you play?
absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
yeah.
So remember that to do that. Oh, sorry.
Come on. It was like subtle. You blew the subtlety. So you'll find it, all the villages sang songs of this nature, and including versions of this song. And in fact, one time I was playing in Chicago with some friendly people, just that wasn't even a gig, it was at our house, and I started making up verses, and I happened to have a moment of really fluent Armenian, so it came off pretty well. But if I tried to do it again, I probably could never repeat that. And I didn't write the words down. So the first couple verses will be in the Dikranagert dialect of Armenian, and then I'll switch to the more traditional verses that people sing. Eskişehir hamportume hele hele hele ninoye Eskişehir hamportume hele hele hele ninoye Haggegnerum hartume hele hele hele ninoye Haggegnerum hartume hele hele hele ninoye Umun akçik bakmada hele hele hele ninoye Umun akçik bakmada hele hele hele ninoye Magar aşkar ansnume hele hele ninoye Magar aşkar ansnume hele hele hele ninoye Eskişehir cırran tutun hele hele hele ninoye Eskişehir cırran tutun hele hele hele ninoye Evle manatsik mutun hele hele hele ninoye Ele manatsik mutun hele hele hele ninoye Ego kurgut vinkestun hele hele hele ninoye Ego kurgut vinkestun hele hele hele ninoye Oğur mi babu tokun hele hele hele ninoye Oğur mi babu tokun hele hele hele ninoye Karmir fistan hakuze hele hele hele ninoye Karmir fistan hakuze hele hele hele ninoye İnşallah vur pilaze hele hele ninoye İnşallah vur pilaze hele hele hele ninoye Yegurinzi bakma dur hele hele hele ninoye Yegurinzi bakma dur hele hele hele ninoye Elam kohori pesa hele hele hele ninoye Elam kohori pesa hele hele hele ninoye Kaksır budu hele hele hele ninoye Karsırdan kaksır budu hele hele hele ninoye Çemmar sipaylan ninçe hele hele hele ninoye Çemmar sipaylan ninçe hele hele hele ninoye Okay. Well, the next song is a surprise for someone here. Possibly my mother, who's sitting in the front row. One of her favorite songs, and I learned this song from her. Աղջիկ Մարիամ դուրը բաց մենդոլինս ներս մնաց Աղջիկ Մարիամ դուրը բաց մենդոլինս ներս մնաց ուրիշին համբույր դվիր իմ համբույրը սուր մնաց ուրիշին համբույր դվիր իմ համբույրը սուր մնաց Մտաս ինչ գլա, դարիները ուշ գլա, բաչի մտաս ինչ գլա, բիդի դասնը հիմա դուր, վաղվան մնա ուշ գլա, ադի դասնը հիմա դուր, վաղվան մնա ուշ գլա, աղջիկ Մարիամ դուրը բաց, մանդոլինս ներս մնաց, աղջիկ Մարիամ դուրը բաց, մանդոլինս ներս մնաց, ուրիշին համբույր դվիր, իմ համբույրը սուր մնաց, ուրիշին համբույր դվիր, իմ համբույրը սուր մնաց Մեր բարդեզին արջևը, հոպ-հոպ գնեն մանչերը, մեր ադազին արջևը, հոպ-հոպ գնեն մանչերը, երբ օրի օր տեսնան, շուտ գտարնան վազելու, երբ օրի օր տեսնան, շուտ գտարնան վազելու, աղջիկ Մարիամ դուրը բաց, մենդոլինս ներս մնաց, աղջիկ Մարիամ դուրը բաց, մենդոլինս ներս մնաց, ուրիշին համբույր դվիր, իմ համբույրը սուր մնաց, ուրիշին համբույր դվիր, իմ համբույրը սուր մնաց, ուրիշին համբույր դվիր, իմ համբույրս ուր մնաց
All right, awesome. So we're going to move into, like I told you a little bit earlier, you know, we've got the capability of playing a lot of different countries and a lot of different songs. You know, what's really interesting about Arabic music in particular is that it can be quite complex in a lot of its modes and scales. There's some similarities certainly in the scales that we play, which again, very similar to Middle Eastern scales, or I'm sorry, Armenian, Arabic, Turkish. There's a lot of similarities in a lot of those scales. But what's interesting, we're going to play a very short portion of an Arabic song. This is sort of like the overture, if you would, to a traditional song. This was written by a composer named Muhammad Abdul Wahab. And he's probably not around, so he's probably not going to be upset that I said that.
He wrote did a lot of work with Kulthum, and it's in the Makam Nihavent, which in Turkish is Nihavent, and it's Arabic music. You know, a lot of Middle Eastern music, the complexity comes from the makam, which is the key that is played in. So we use a lot of what sounds like bent notes sometimes.
Microtonal.
And from the rhythms are very complex, from the 9/8 and the 7/8 and things of that nature. Western music, the complexity came from harmony, So it's only recently that harmony has been added to a lot of Middle Eastern music. So the complexity comes from the intricacy of the melody and the maqam and the rhythm. So we're
Yeah.
gonna feature.
So we're going to actually feature Jerry on this. He doesn't know until now. No, he knew. He knew.
It's a surprise.
But it's a surprise. But he's going to do a drum solo at the end of this. But, you know, after that, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the origins, a little bit about the instruments that we're playing as well, too. So be ready for that. Mr. Jerry Gerjekian. They didn't like it.
Okay.
Before we play the next song, I want to talk a little bit about some of these instruments that we're playing here. Certainly, Jerry is playing these dumbegs that we talked about. It's an hourglass-shaped drum. This, when in America, when there was Armenian music, I'd say right after the genocide, and maybe around the Depression era, they weren't playing this kind of a setup. They were playing actually drum sets. And so you would see sort of a snare drum and, kind of a bass drum and maybe a cymbal, and then that was kind of it. And this sort of changed a little bit later. There were, for Armenian music, big bands. There were a couple of the big bands. One was the Vospikian band, and the other was the Gomidas band. And these were Armenian American bands, and they were like ensembles on stage. And certainly they took from jazz. They took from the Benny Goodman era, the Harry James and whatnot, and what they had was they had these big sections of drummers on, and I think that's really what kind of changed and added to where we've got the drums. He's playing two different types of drums. I think it's kind of important to really notate. The one on his right, a dumbeg or a dumbeg, and it's said and written a lot of different ways. Right. So doom-tek, doom-bek. So it's really based because the name really comes from the sound of it. The other drum is more of a darbuka or dirbeki. So it's more Arabic, and it's got more of a trebly kind of a sound to it. Yeah. And so initially, the one on the right was always kind of metal, and the one on the left was made out of clay at a certain point. But this is aluminum, right? That one, they're both aluminum at this point. So. So those are those instruments. Do you want to talk about the oud a little bit and share that?
The oud is one of the oldest stringed instruments. There's no frets on it, which allows us to play the microtones. And there's 6 strings. 5 of them are double strings. In the Armenian Turkish tradition, the lowest one is a single string, and probably because they had double strings just to make it acoustically louder. And the bass string was loud enough, I guess, on its own. The instrument has been around for thousands of years. Everybody claims it's like baklava and things. Everybody says, "Oh, it's ours. We started it," but it probably began in some of the Arab countries. And I think if I've got this right, in Arabic it's el oud, and it means the wood. So it's supposed to be made out of wood, and you can tell this is crafted by a Smithsonian fellow. Peter Cavellis, who passed away a few years ago, he lived and worked in Boston, and he made this for me. It's a beautiful instrument. And there's makers now that will make ouds and sell them for $5,000, $10,000 and up a piece, depending on the kind of wood and the kind of ornamentation you want on it. So it's Armenians use it. It's used by Turks, Greeks. Every Arab country has oud players, and they all play a different style. I tell people I wish I had a light switch so I could switch from the Armenian Turkish style that I play to the Arabic style, but I haven't found the ability to do that yet, so I still struggle sometimes trying to get a real authentic Arab sound out of my instruments. So this is the oud.
But something that you should add that is really kind of the playing of it. So you talked about a bit about the makams, and which is really the scales, and of note is that this is not westernized music. So putting this music on a sheet music looks entirely different to a classical performer. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we got backwards flats when it's written on a regular music scale.
Yeah.
And you have to know that means a microtone, and then you have to know if the song is Arabic or Turkish. That's Turkish Hijaz. Slightly different, but different, is the Arabic Hijaz, makam. The instrument has no finish on the face. It's raw wood. It's untreated wood, and it gives it that haunting, vampy kind of sound. Where a guitar, if you hit the string, it rings. This has a more muted sound to it because of that.
And no frets.
No frets. And if you hear the microtones, here's an Armenian song just played in a regular minor key. If I just change this note to this note, it gives it a whole different flavor to it, to a minor key. So that's this idea of makam and the modes and scales that are used.
Great, thank you, Mark. So the instrument everybody came to listen to. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Had to throw that in. Clearly, no. So, so I'm playing the kanun. It's spelled a lot of different ways, and I spell it Kanun. In the Arab world, they spell it with a Q. The Armenians spell it Kanon, but in essence, it's the same thing. This instrument dates all the way back to the 5th century. And like the oud being the granddaddy to the guitar, the kanun is the granddaddy to the piano. So when you look at here, let's all take this piano apart. No, if you look at the it's the same shape in a way, right? So the inside of this piano has got like strings that are going really across this, and you've got you've got the white and the black keys to it. I've got white keys and then a bunch of black keys to this. It's really gives the ability to do microtonal scales. So there are well over 70 strings on this. The strings rest on a bridge, and the bridge actually rests on 4 different chambers, and there's it used to be a membrane skin. We're using nylon strings. It would have been gut strings, early on. But what's really important to this instrument, and for $5 a touch, you can touch it later if you come up. So I'll give a senior discount, 10 for that. No, we've got it's sort of a machinery that's on this board, and there are levers. We call them mandals. The Arab world calls them orabs, but these are in essence these are levers that I can raise or lower. On a particular note, I may have 9 different levers, and so what Mark has to do with his fingers to get sort of that microtonal scale, I've got levers to really kind of set that up. So you'll see that as I'm playing the song and as we're playing different songs, and I'm changing these mandals. So that's this instrument. Similar to the oud and in the same kind of regions where it's played. All of our instruments are still very popular throughout the Middle East and in Armenia. Today in Armenia, there are hundreds of girls that are playing this instrument. It's beautiful to listen to and to watch. I'm waiting for a joke. I know a joke's coming here. Go ahead.
All of them play better than him.
Yeah, they are. They're all very talented. They're all very conservatory. I didn't say anything about his playing comparatively.
Don't bring me into this.
Yeah, I'm trying to. But depending on, when Mark talked about a little bit of the difference between Arabic and Turkish music, this is a Turkish instrument, this one in particular. The Armenian has the same size. We may not have as many levers for the Armenian ones because it's more tuned to a chromatic scale. The Arab instruments are a bit bigger, they're a bit thicker. They may not have as many levers as well. It's got a real different sound to it. So it's kind of interesting. Mark said something that's really kind of the same here too. I can get a bit of an Arabic sound to this because of the way the mandals are set up, but there is certainly, it's difficult when you're tuning an instrument to a certain kind of music. You get a different kind of feel to it. Okay, more enough talking. We're gonna go back and play some Armenian music. This is a very popular tune that we all play. It's a bit of a drinking song of sorts, but I know there's no alcohol here, so I'm sorry for those of you that were hoping that there would be. But we're gonna play a song called Sera Ne Arad, and will you talk a little bit about that, the origin?
While it's about lifting your glass and drinking Armenian wine, it's also a patriotic song. And the poet that wrote the lyrics was born in Van, of which there's very few Armenians living now, and migrated to what was then Soviet Armenia and wrote these words to it. And It's a nice song. Again, it's one of my mother's favorites. It might have been one that she made me learn early on in my musical career. So, again, to my mother.
Segan arad, dimat nararad, hanshum yeker urachuzavar. Segan arad, dimat nararad, hanshum yeker urachuzavar. Let's make
So we got time for one more, and we're going to do actually kind of a Greek tune for you. There's not going to be a lot of information about it. It's a Greek tune. It's a Greek dance tune. There's so much more that we could talk about, and certainly we're going to play this song. We're happy to take a few minutes after that to kind of answer any questions you might have, as long as they're easy softball ones. No, well, we'd be happy to certainly talk to you. But before we play this last song, again, I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. Nice hand for the folks here at the Kerrytown Concert House. And I'll be the shameless promoter for them. They have a phenomenal list of artists that come here and perform. I sit on the State Arts Council. I know the work that they do here. It's not easy doing what they do here. They bring in local artists from all over. To do all of this and have all of this is wonderful. So thank you for supporting art, certainly music, Michigan, and certainly this place. Before we end, how about a nice hand for Mr. Jerry Gerjekian and Mr. Mark Gavoor? Thank you very much. So we've got a couple of minutes. If there's any questions that you guys have, we'd be happy to answer. Yes? I said softball, not like, you know. So why did I choose this instrument? Well, to be quite honest, there was nobody else here playing this instrument. So there were oud players, there were drummers, there were clarinetists. There wasn't really anybody playing the kanun. And I had listened to it and loved listening to it on recordings. And I just said, I want to do something other people were not doing. How I learned, a lot of it was on my own. I talked about earlier how it's kind of handed down traditions. And so I learned a lot of it. Actually, Mark gave me the advice of, I said, well, there's so many songs. How do you learn all these songs? He's like, yeah, start listening to records. Back then it was records. And that's how I did it. It was just listening to that and then going to different, Armenian affairs and dances and listening to it. And then, it's just by practice and repetition. No teacher. There was a musician named is Jerry Gerjekian out in California. He's a fantastic Armenian kanun player that would give me lessons once a year. He would play at an event called Kerrytown in Hartford. And this was years ago, and I was really only interested in going and partying, listening to this music and, maybe consuming a little bit of, beverages. And he was coming from California. Here I was coming to Detroit, and first thing he'd say when he'd check in the lobby is like, let's go practice and play some music in about 15 minutes. So, he did that once a year for several years. When he'd be on stage, he'd kind of call me over and say, stand over here. Here, I did this earlier today. I'm going to do this, again. It's the only one that really kind of took the time to do that, but it's difficult. There's not a lot of performers or musicians here that could sit down and teach that.
Lately, more people have been giving lessons. And the oud players that have actually had a chance to take lessons are phenomenal. I remember when we would listen to the Kerrytown albums, and it would always start with a drone and an improvisation by either the clarinet player or the oud player. So they would hit like and then either the clarinet player or the oud player would take a solo. Well, that drone was an A. I would tune my oud to their A on the album and just play with the album from start to finish. Sometimes well, sometimes badly. So that's how we all kind of learned.
Yes, sir. We could probably both answer that. Do you want to why don't you take a stab at it?
Well, the kind of music, a lot of the music we play today is more Armenia is a land historically of mountainous towns where the dialects from village to village were so different. The music from village to village could be the same and different at the same time. The language, the dialects were sometimes you couldn't understand. They were speaking Armenian, but you couldn't understand what one village to the next village might be saying. We've lost a lot of the dialects. We've lost a lot. Now there's basically a Western and an Eastern Armenian, and the music we play is more Western Armenian from the lost villages from the genocide times, and so we preserve that style. So if you go to some of the villages in Turkey, you might hear some of the same kinds of songs we're playing, but maybe not all the same ones. If you go to Hayastan, Armenia, you're going to hear a different style of music. Some of the songs are going to be the same, but they'll play it different. If we play this song, the one I was playing for you, that's Western Armenian rhythm. If you play it in Eastern Armenian rhythm, or a 6/8 instead. So it might be the same song as played in a different rhythm, and sometimes the songs are different. And with the modern age, if we go to Armenia, you're going to hear music that sounds almost Western, or almost have a Russian influence, or French influence. And then you'll hear other things. You know, sometimes you have a singer like Nuna that will take the old Western Armenian songs, like her version of Hella Hella that we played for you is awesome with modern instrumentation and harmonies, and it's just top notch. So to answer your question, I don't know where you could go in Armenia to hear exactly this, but you would hear music.
How much of what you're doing is improvisational? In other words, when you play the songs over and over again, do you play them different every time?
That's a very good question. So if you couldn't hear him, he asked about, is a lot of what we're doing improvisational. There is a lot of improvisation in the music that we're playing. Certainly the solos that we do at the beginning of the song or during the middle of it is all improvisational. There's a similarity to the music that we play in jazz music. So if you're a lover of jazz music and you listen to the likes of a Dave Brubeck or a Herbie Mann, they discovered this music back in the 60s. A lot of it in New York, and they made recordings because they understood it. Jazz performer understands a lot of this music because there is a lot of improvisational to it. Do we play the same song the same way all the time? No, I'm sure there's a little variations.
It's like
but
snowflakes, no two times are the same.
yeah.
But even when you go, even in the villages in the United States, like New York or Fresno or wherever you go,
Yeah.
and if I could sit in with
Yeah.
musicians, we have to play, but I have to adapt. If I sit in with a band that's been playing together, I have to adapt to the style they play the song a little bit different.
Yep.
And sometimes they play it faster, sometimes they play it slower, and it's just something you have to adapt to.
Yep. Okay. Hey, did anybody else? I didn't want to cut anybody else. Oh, yes. The last song that we played, it is I don't know that this is the correct song too, but we call it a hasapiko. And it's a Greek dance, an actual Greek dance. But I don't know the real name to it.
No, I'm Turkish, so it is called kasap havası.
No, I don't. It might be. I don't know 100%. Yeah.
I want to make some comments to the question that sir asked. So in Turkey, we can hear this kind of music in Istanbul, because Turkish classical art music all includes all those makams, songs. They use oud, kanun,
Yeah.
and there are concerts going on using this kind of instruments, and especially when it's called puzzle nights, we can hear same similar music. In Anatolia, mostly these days, main instrument is
Saz.
baba.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Will you come back again soon?
Ooh, I love that. We'd love to. Would you like us to come back? That's a good way to end. All right, we're going to do one more song. All right.
Hüsenigin sazera yotnagi balçurera yotnagi balçurera Khakis khis gdanem cive cihayak cigner Khakis khis gdanem cive cihayak cigner Zarerin branushkala, vartin vra pushkala, bak me dasne inchkala, bak me dasne hima duhur havan manna ushkala, bak me dasne hima duhur havan manna ushkala, hoy canım canım canım, vay canım canım. Hop canım canım canım Bak me dasne hima duhur havan manna ushgalla Akçik dasne hima duhur havan manna ushgalla Catskillin jumpan olur molur Catskillin jumpan olur molur Akçik mıdısa şadga mançer Akçik mıdısa şadga mançer Yekur yerden mezi Boski yardım kezi Yekur yerden mezi Boski yardım kezi Çaracıcı akçik Başımı durinzi Çaracıcı akçik Başımı durinzi Այս քիշեր մեր զվար ջալին անցավ դադիգինին վաղման գործը շացավ Այս քիշեր մեր զվար ջալին անցավ դադիգինին վաղման գործը շացավ Դարի լոլո դարի լոլո դադիգինը գլվեցուցիկ լոլո Դարի լոլո դադիգինը գլվեցուցիկ լոլո Շադանուշե քունա վաղիրի գունրամ մեծեք մեր դունա Ինչանուշե շադանուշե քունա վաղիրի գունրամ մեծեք մեր դունա Դարի լոլո դանդիգինին գլեցուցիկ լոլո Դարի լոլո դանդիգինին գլեցուցիկ լոլո
Have a good night. Thank you very much.